From Upper Egypt to Lower Egypt, we've got two hosts to host. Welcome to another episode of the Fivecast Podcast. We're to break down and examine intricately prepared top 5 lists for your enjoyment from the Sentinel Tower in parts unknown. I'm your host, Tyler, and Second Floor Studios in Hollywood. It's Ben Pearson. How you doing, Ben?
What is going on, Tyler?
Not much. I got to make this a quick one, buddy, but I did want to briefly meet with you, do a top 5 list, of course, based on a little movie coming out this week. It's The Mummy 4. They finally got... what's his name back in business?
Arnold Vosloo?
Yeah, him. Rachel Weisz, I think, is returning for this installment.
Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, it's actually Gods of Egypt, Ben, which may come from the same studio that brought you Prince of Persia?
No, I think that was Disney, but this is
what about
Lionsgate, maybe? I don't know.
Okay. Didn't they bring another movie to life that dealt with like Egypt or something like that, or mythological beings? Ancient times, like 10,000 BC, maybe?
I feel like I'm going to look this up,
Doesn't
but
matter.
it really doesn't matter.
So Gods of Egypt coming out. We're going to be talking about some gods of Egypt. Ben, I'm sure you have a list that deals something with that topic. Am I right?
Yes, I do. And by the way, Warner Brothers was 10,000 BC.
Okay, so I'm totally off base here. But yeah, the Gods of Egypt coming out, and we're forging a list around that topic. And I dove into the library. Got a lot of books on ancient Egypt, buddy.
Do you really?
Yeah, I got 3.
Okay, that's a considerable amount for a personal library, I would say.
2 of them are mummy-based, like just mummies, but I do have one about that has a chapter on religion. And I thought it was interesting. I wanted to read a few excerpts from this, Ben.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Ancient Egypt, at least, didn't really have a common religion. It wasn't like the same religion throughout the entire area.
Uh-huh.
It was mostly like there were some main gods that everyone kind of knew about, like Ra, the sun god. But it was more kind of locally based, your system of deities, I guess. Each town, village possessed its own particular divinity, adored by the respective inhabitants, and mostly by them alone. So if you lived in a town, you would probably have your town god that you would worship, right? But another town over would probably have a totally different god. And they would probably try to campaign for more people to believe in their particular gods, but you probably weren't, unless you were like a merchant or something, you probably weren't traveling from town to town very often. And then, of course, pharaohs thought they were gods, and so they would want you to worship them, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
But the form of a god was generally some sort of animal, so there was a lot of respect for nature in ancient Egypt, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And Egyptians believed that each place was inhabited by a great number of spirits, and that the lesser spirits were subject to the chief spirit. And in some instances, all these spirits formed a suite or a divine cycle, and sometimes they were considered part of the chief spirit's family. And so sometimes you'll see families of gods, mostly because there's probably multiple spirits connected together. But Egypt's been around was around, at least ancient Egypt was around for like thousands of years. So there isn't like a continuous series of myths. It's mostly very sporadic. Different gods were merged together, things like that. So it is kind of an interesting topic, Ben. I think you minored in classical studies, so you're probably going to be the expert here.
And not quite. It's been many years.
Let's go ahead and get that list started with your favorite, or your number 5 favorite god of Egypt. Go ahead.
My number 5 is Gerard Butler.
Okay.
I believe the Egyptians worship him right now in this day. No, I'm just kidding.
He's right there in the book.
Gerard Butler is not my number 5. It is a character named Seshat, which is the ancient Egyptian goddess of wisdom, knowledge, and writing.
Not
her
the
name.
Toilet?
No, her name. I see what you did there. Yeah. Her name apparently means "she who scrivens," which I thought was a cool word, and that apparently is a way to say "she who is the scribe." And she was actually credited with inventing the form of writing, Tyler. So she was
perhaps.
Yeah, just writing in general, which I think. I don't know how far the Egyptians went as far as travel and spreading their empire all across the world. I'm not sure what the full reach of that was and what their knowledge was back in the day of other cultures that predated them. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that that writing existed long before the ancient Egyptian culture came into being. But maybe they just thought that Seshat was the guiding hand behind the people who are making the cave paintings in the humanity's
Right.
first writing markings and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. As a writer myself, Tyler, I figured I got to give a shout out, my number 5 spot, to Shat for
Yeah.
the inventor of writing
Well, I mean,
herself.
yeah, if you consider cave drawings writing, but maybe more like organized writing, like page writing,
Yeah, there could be a lot
probably
of different
originated in Egypt.
interpretations. Hmm.
I know they came up with papyrus. That's reeds. That's
Yep.
crisscrossed reeds pounded into a flat piece of parchment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. My number 5 is Nu or Nun, which is the deification of the primordial watery abyss.
That is awesome.
So before Earth, before life, I guess, before man, there was just, I guess there was just the seed of a god, and then eventually an ocean. And I suppose the land formed at some point, but it used to be just the abyss of the ocean. And man, if you ask me, I think the ocean is still a rocking deity of sorts. It can give, but then it can also take. It can give life and it can take it away. And so, yeah, obviously we would personify that in some form or deify it, if you will. The ancient Egyptians probably feared, initially, I'm sure the very, very ancient Egyptians probably feared the ocean, didn't know necessarily how it worked. But then you actually had to develop agriculture and food using the Nile. And so they got a little more predictive, I guess, of when to sow crops and things like that with the rise and fall of the river. They would assume that praying to Osiris would affect the Nile as well. So, but then again, people still pray for stuff to happen today. So it isn't that out of the ordinary to pray for a specific kind of level of water so that your crops can do real well.
So
Makes a lot of sense.
For the entire time that you were talking, I was thinking that what you had said was that this character, this god, was the anthropomorphized form of this initial thing, but it was actually just the personification of it, which
Yeah.
I feel like the anthropomorphization, whatever that word is, I'm
Yeah.
not sure. That would be a hell of a lot more entertaining, don't you think? Especially considering, what is it again? Read it to me.
There's a deification of the primordial watery abyss.
Right. So that basically would be a primordial watery abyss that would be walking around with
Yeah.
legs and arms and everything.
Well, what's interesting about Nu or Nun is a lot of times he's portrayed as male, but he can also have features that might look female. So like gender, it could be fluid, much like water. But a lot of times Nu will have a kind of a frog depiction, and frogs, like we learned in Jurassic Park, can also change genders when necessary.
Yes.
So it all comes back to ancient Egypt. So they knew that frogs could
Okay.
maybe sometimes be gender fluid, and knew kids at home, if you're listening and you're in high school and you're not really down with your identity yet, that's okay. There's an ancient
really wanna
god
go
for
here?
you. There's an ancient god for you. I'm just telling
Okay.
you. Like
All
you
right.
can define your own identity, just like
Okay.
Nu. He's like, okay, maybe I'll be a huge watery abyss, or maybe I'll be a frog, maybe I'll be male, maybe I'll be female. It doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want.
Okay.
That's all
That
I'm
actually
saying. That's all I'm
was
saying.
far less worrisome than what I
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
it
yeah.
was
No,
gonna
I'm all
be.
about identity issues, brother. Ben, number 4.
All right, my number 4 is Mafdet, a
Oh,
goddess
He's
who
a sweet rapper.
a goddess who protected against snakes and scorpions. She was often represented as a mongoose. I'm a big fan of mongeese.
Mongeese. Yes, mongeese.
And
I think he's
so,
unlockable in Street Fighter.
and I like the idea of the scorpions and snakes were such a big part of the iconography associated
Yeah.
with ancient Egypt.
Definitely.
And I like the idea of this person, this goddess Mafdet, being the one who sort of goes against the grain and being the one who is called in as the protector against those icons.
Right.
So yeah, this person was let's see here. Since venomous animals such as scorpions and snakes are killed by felines, Mafdet was also seen as a feline goddess, although it's uncertain whether alternately she also was meant to be a cat or a mongoose. I guess like maybe she transformed back and
yeah.
forth between those sort of forms.
Animorph style.
Yeah, yeah. And so this was like a first dynasty of Pharaoh Din. This is her reign, was right around
Yeah.
that period. Like you mentioned, a lot of the stuff was localized. So I don't know if she's sort of if the belief in Mafdet rose and fell with this dynasty, or if
Right.
she's sort of stuck around for a long time. I'm not
Sure.
entirely certain about the history there. I just like the idea of what she represents, and yeah, I guess yeah, it was said that Mafdet ripped out the hearts of wrongdoers.
Whoa.
So that's pretty hardcore. And I guess she delivered the hearts to the pharaoh's feet, and that's sort of I guess you could draw parallels between that behavior and the behavior of like house cats now that
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
kill birds or rats around the house or whatever,
Yeah, that makes
lizards, and then
sense.
just drop them at your owners, to your owner and be like, hey, look, I'm presenting you with this thing
Right.
I did.
It's a
So
sign of respect.
yeah, I guess so. And apparently the enemies of the pharaoh were decapitated with something called Mafdet's claw, which sounds pretty
Ooh,
cool.
sweet.
Yeah, it
Weapon
sounds
of choice.
like an Indiana Jones artifact or
Yeah, a
something.
relic.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I still think that cats they were worshipped by the ancient Egyptians because of their conduitity to the underworld, and I still think cats see ghosts and stuff floating around because they're always
Mhm.
meowing at something, and it's like, what are you looking at? That's a wall.
I saw some
Probably the
news
ghost of
article.
a pharaoh.
I saw some headline today that was like, dogs can probably see magnetic fields. And I was
Oh,
like,
cool.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Didn't read it. Go
Oh,
ahead.
nice job. Just read the headline.
Yep.
My number 4 is Jip, and he's an Egyptian god of earth, and some say that his laughter caused earthquakes. So that is pretty badass. He's
Wow.
kind of like the juggernaut of the Egyptian pantheon.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I'm Jeb, bitch," and then just a city destroyed. Um, so yeah, the interesting thing, like, I haven't really heard of Jeb before, but now that I have, I really do like him. His was pronounced during the Greek period as Seb or Keb,
Mm.
but the original Egyptian was probably Gebeb or Kebeb.
Okay.
So there you go. But yeah, I think he has he's a grandson of Horus,
Hmm.
and so he will sometimes have he'll be symbolized by the geese or the goose, I guess, maybe a bull. So yeah, he doesn't really have a set animal face or anything like that. He's
Okay.
just kind of a human looking god who yeah, you can laugh and cause earthquakes. So that sounds like a superhero of some sort, right?
That is pretty cool. Yeah, for sure.
I was thinking about Egyptian mythology, and it isn't like comic books at all, where there are like a line of stories that all make sense. It's so like thrown together. It's like this out of control tapestry where all these towns existed for thousands of years, and people made up new stuff and new gods. And so yeah, Jeb may have only been around for, much like the political candidate, may have only been around for a short time before falling out of favor with the Egyptian people.
Okay.
See what I did there, Ben?
I did. Yeah. Topical.
I hope
Bringing
you
it in.
guys only come to the Fivecast for news events and current events, because we'll bring them in some form.
Yeah, I love the idea that people are listening to this and are like, "Oh, Jeb must have dropped out."
Yeah, yeah,
They have no idea.
Ben, number 3.
My number 3 is Emotep, Tyler.
Emotep.
This is the character popularized by the Mummy series of movies.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Going all the way
my
back to the 1930s, I think the mummy's name was Emotep in those.
was
too.
it? I
I
never.
think so.
I've never.
Boris
I know.
Karloff as the mummy.
I know we talked on a previous episode about how you were going through and watching a lot of those old like Universal classics,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Wolfman and Dracula and stuff like that. Did you watch The Mummy?
yeah. No,
Okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten
I
around to
feel
that
like
one either.
there's a lot of sequels, so that would be like a series of films I could watch, but I haven't seen them
Yeah.
yet. No.
So I'm not sure if that was Emotep back in the day or if that was just for the whatever that was 1999
Right,
movie.
right.
But so my appreciation for this god is partially informed by that, the popularization of the character in those movies, and also just because the real guy, or as real as you can be as an ancient Egyptian god,
Yeah, yeah. Well, he was
was
deified. He was to my understanding, and you're probably going to say this, wasn't he deified over time?
Yeah, I think it was like he was one of the where is it? I had that written down
Djoser,
somewhere.
I think the pharaoh's name was Djoser, and Imhotep was like his high priest, his
Oh, here we
high
go. So,
assistant.
yeah, he was one of only a few commoners ever to be accorded divine status after death. So that's pretty cool.
And it took 2,000 years, Ben.
Yeah, good God. I mean, this
2,000
guy.
years, and people are still talking about Imhotep.
But the thing about him was like most of these people, most of these gods are just like the god of one thing, or and they have like a couple things that they're associated with.
Right.
Imhotep, before he became deified, was a chancellor to the pharaoh, as you mentioned before, with Djoser, that was the pharaoh at the time. And then, so he's considered by some to be the earliest known architect.
Yeah.
And that's pretty awesome. And then
Yeah.
he was also an engineer and a physician. Some people say he was the first physician, but apparently there's some other there's some sort of conflicts about other physicians being around in the ancient Egyptian times.
Right.
But first architect, that's pretty cool. I thought that went well with Seshat, the first writer, also on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, the Imhotep was like not only into architecture and engineering and everything, he was also a poet and a philosopher, and yeah, became deified after death, which is like, I'm sure, one of the coolest things that can happen to you in that sort of society. I mean, I'm guessing like that's what everybody's
any society.
That's what everybody's aiming for. That's a high bar.
Well, Imhotep's old his old catchphrase, right?
No, I don't. Go ahead.
Death is only the beginning.
Oh, I think that's from the movies.
What's this, Dave? Oh, he's handed me a slip of paper. It was Imhotep in the 1932 movie, The Mummy.
Nice. All right.
They were drawing from facts. I don't know if you're on the same page as I, but can you read his official full title back in ancient times?
Yeah. So, Chancellor of the King of Egypt, Doctor, first in line after the King of Upper Egypt, Administrator of the Great Palace, Hereditary Nobleman, High Priest of Heliopolis. Heliopolis, yeah, that's right. Builder, Chief Carpenter, Chief Sculptor, and Maker of Vases in Chief. It's just like, that one might be his highest honor, I think.
Yeah, he's probably like, I guess add it on.
But it's very much like Daenerys Targaryen, Stormborn, Breakers of Chains, and all that kind of stuff. She has like 15 different adjectives that are this laundry list of her titles that are rolled out.
Top 5 Daenerys titles coming soon.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Speaking of vases, Ben, those 4 canopic jars that you usually find with a mummy?
Yes.
And you find the organs and stuff inside?
Yep.
Yeah, those are. Yeah, remember in the Mummy,
the brains from the nose and stuff like that.
Yeah. Those are actually representatives of the sons of Horus. That's my number 3, Ben. The 4 sons of Horus.
Horus. Wait, the son of Horus is your number 3?
The 4 sons of Horus.
Okay, it's a tie. All right.
There's 4 of them, yeah. And you got Imseti, you've got Duamutef, you've got Happy, which sounds like one of the 7 dwarves. And then Kebesinif. So there's a human, a jackal, a baboon, and a hawk. And they each represent the different compass directions, and they each protect a different part of your body to so that you have them when you get into the underworld. And then they're also protected by 4 goddesses: Isis, Neith, Nephthys, and Serket, I want to say. Coincidentally enough, you mentioned the brain. I was reading that the brain, to the Egyptians, they didn't know much about it, obviously, and they only thought it produced fluid. That was it. And so they would scramble your brain and pull it out of your skull, right? Like Rachel Weisz describes in The Mummy. Ah, man, she really needs to come onto the show. Every time I think about her, it's just like, man, I need to find the path that leads to her. Hold on, let me recover for a second.
I think it's through Daniel Craig or Darren Aronofsky.
Oh, Daniel Craig.
One of the 2.
Yeah, he's getting too old. I could probably beat him up. Anyway, so you scrambled the brains, they pulled it out, and they would discard it. But they felt that the soul was actually in your heart. So they left your heart, your organ, in your body. But they would take out the liver, the stomach, the lungs, and the large intestines. And then they would put those in jars. The jars, of course, representing the 4 sons of Horus. And so you would have those in your little box when you died. And then you would go and get your heart weighed by Anubis, and then if your heart was not worthy, it would get eaten by a crocodile, a monster of sorts. And then if your heart was worthy, because it was weighed against like the feather of truth or something like that, and then you were able to go across the ocean to the afterworld.
Wow.
And I really hope that's what death is like. I really hope that all this Egyptian knowledge that I have really comes in handy when I finally close the Fivecast Studios for the final time, i.e. my eyelids, and I travel the abyss, the watery deified abyss of Nu, that my heart, of course, outweighs the
feather of truth or whatever it is.
Right. And my heart is not eaten by the crocodile, and my organs are well protected by the sons of Horus.
Okay.
Pretty exciting stuff, Ben. Let's move on to number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 actually is Horus himself.
Ooh, nice.
I feel like there's a good connection there that leads right in, and that's I gotta tell you, Tyler, that's a big part of why I chose this character is because it is a namesake of our good friend Horace Smith.
Horace Smith. Now, a lot of listeners may not know who Horace Smith is. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
It may or may not be in sort of.
He's in the Fivecast pantheon, if you want to consider the show mythology.
Yeah, in the show's mythology, in the Fivecast mythology, he is Jeff Worthington's cohort and co-anchor. Yep.
Co-anchor.
And you might recognize him from the Thanksgiving episodes that we've done in the past.
Yeah. Horace, I don't think Horace has made any of those. Only Jeff.
Oh, really?
It was you and Jeff that had to ping back and forth.
Me and Horace are so alike, Tyler. It's tough to tell us apart sometimes.
He probably phoned in a few questions.
He really is the sort of straight man to the wacky Jeff Worthington character. Yeah. Former weathermen, both, I believe.
That's right.
Anyway,
he's probably a network executive of sorts, producer.
Maybe working for the network. We're getting into some deep mythology here that has nothing to do with Egyptian lore. So
Horus the god, then.
Horus the god is the namesake of Horace Smith. That's a big part of the reason why I chose this character. Horus is my number 2 because he is the sky god. He's also the god of war and hunting. There was a big conflict between him and Set. Horus was the son of Isis and Osiris, and was a big. I think he battled Set, who murdered Osiris. So there's a lot of like interfamilial conflicts going on.
Cain and Abel shit.
Yeah, exactly. And there's like Horus the Younger, Horus the Elder. There's all sorts of Horai that have come and gone throughout the years.
I believe he wears the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. So he's that popular of a god that Upper and Lower Egypt recognized him as some deity. So once you're known throughout the kingdoms, then you're pretty badass.
Yeah, and he's also he was often depicted as having a falcon head, and I think you mentioned that one of the sons of Horus also had a falcon head, so that one must have been maybe like the favorite son or something. But
do you think Horus in battle would use a falcon punch?
Ooh, now we're getting into interesting topics here. Yeah, and then like there's also the Eye of Horus, which is this ancient Egyptian symbol of protection, which it's also known as the Eye of Ra, by the way, which may or may not be the plot of Gods of Egypt, the movie. I refuse to see it because it looks terrible, but from what I can gather from the trailers,
you didn't get in free for any reason.
No,
I didn't invite you to come watch Gods of Egypt.
Didn't get an invite for that one. That shows that they're really confident about that movie.
Okay, I see how it works.
So I think one of the characters steals the eye of Horus, like rips the eye actually out of his face, of his head. And
Gerard
I think
Butler's face?
No, I think of Nikolai Coster-Waldau, who plays Jaime Lannister on Game of Thrones. I think he plays Horus, maybe? I don't know. I can't really figure it out. But,
so they don't have animal heads, basically?
No, yeah, they're rocking the human.
Well, how are people supposed to know which gods are gods?
Yeah, it seems questionable. So why don't we jump into your number 1? Or wait, your number 1?
Number 2.
Your number 2. Your number
2 is I got to give it to my old girl Nut, N-U-T, or Nuth, Nuet. Listen to this, Ben. She's the goddess of the sky, the stars, the sun, the moon, light, heaven, astronomy, the universe, air, and the winds.
Holy crap.
She's got a lot of jurisdiction, pretty much
Yeah.
everything. She usually has a pot on top of her head, like a clay pot, but that's usually representative of like a womb. So she's like the mother goddess. She's
Okay.
also sometimes represented as a cow. And so cows like representing the motherly milk that is given from cows to not only calves, but people. You could consider her like the protector of everybody, kind of the motherly figure. Because in these ancient cultures, a lot of there are gods, but then there are also major powerful goddesses too. So they balanced the genders out. Most of your Egyptian mythology does have a male female yin yang component to it. You know, like there's always like a male and a female counterpart. And
Yep.
so there's probably, I think the sky god is I want to say Ray. No, not Ray. Maybe Amun, something like that. And then
Okay.
this would be the female. This would be the goddess of the sky.
I think Horus was the sky god.
Who was my first guy? Nu's the. No, that's not right either.
It looks like Horus. I'm looking at
Horus is the god of the sky. Well, there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
But Nut, I got to give it up for Nut because
Definitely.
I'm, of course, a hardcore feminist. Women are just as powerful as men. And it goes to show even Egypt understood what I was trying to talk about. Goddess of tons of stuff. And as the editor of the Solar Sentinel, I got to give it up for the goddess of the sun.
Boom.
And also as the hot-blooded enemy of the lunar lithograph, I also have to mention the goddess of the moon. And because I love space, I got to give it to the goddess of astronomy and the universe. So much stuff to associate with Nut here.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. Ben, we've got it. Number one, God of Egypt.
All right, my number
Number
one
one at the box office.
Number one god of Egypt is Babi, also known as Baba,
Baba, no!
the deification of the baboon.
Okay. Oh, nice.
The alpha male of all baboons is what the translation is.
Right.
This character, this god was the one that sort of ruled over the deceased, I think, to some degree. Let me see here. So baboons were considered to be the dead in Egyptian culture, and Babi was viewed as an underworld deity. This is pretty great. So extremely aggressive, omnivorous. Babi was viewed as being extremely bloodthirsty and lived on entrails. So
Great.
that's pretty hardcore.
Pretty
He was viewed as devouring the souls of the unrighteous after they had been weighed. So that's what you're talking about, sort of like the weighing. Babi was in some culture, in some splinters of the Egyptian culture at least, Babi was the one who ate their souls, basically, which is pretty awesome. And then this Babi creature would stand on a lake of fire or right next to a lake of fire, basically tempting anyone to come at him, bro. And
Come at me, bro.
he was the firstborn son of Osiris. The best thing, and the thing that I think you'll really enjoy about this character, Tyler, is that baboons have noticeably high sex drives.
Of course.
In addition to their high level of genital marking. So Babi was considered the god of virility of the dead.
Hey-oh.
He was usually portrayed with an erection, and due to the association with his judging of the souls, he was depicted as using his erection as the mast of the ferry which conveyed the righteous to a series of islands, which is like the promised land sort of thing.
Hey guys, watch this.
Yeah, and so he just would lay back and be flat on a boat and then just tie up a sail, I guess, to it. I'm not really sure. But he would prayed to in order that individuals would not suffer impotence after death. So not only do you have to worry about impotence during life, but also post life.
Yeah. Well, how are you gonna have ghost sex? It's impossible if you don't have an erection after death. Also, I bet Charon or Chiron or whoever, he's probably got a pretty deep beef with this guy. He gets like a skeleton encased in like a dirty old cloth, and then this guy gets like a huge dong. He's like, how did that work out?
Yeah, and they're both battling over whether or not they're the ones that are the subject of the song "Don't Pay the
Yeah, yeah.
Ferryman."
I thought you were gonna say they're also trying to win over like ferry passengers, and
Oh.
all the girls go to Bobby's boat. They're
I
like,
mean,
we're gonna go to the one with their huge penis, and
I know
Karen's
I-
like, "Damn you!"
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think,
Christopher. I hope Christopher is well versed in classical studies, just the subcategory of ferrymen, ancient ferrymen.
yeah, yeah.
He just knows about those guys. Very cool, Ben. Thanks for making me laugh. My number one isn't as exciting as yours, but he does
Exciting.
Yeah, hey he does guard the underworld of the aforementioned underworld. I don't know if he's god of the underworld. I think that would be Osiris, but Anubis, Ben, with the head of a jackal, the head of a dog.
Yes.
I believe he is like the caretaker. He's the one that he's the first guy you see basically when you show up dead. You've closed the 5Cast studios for the last time, i.e. your eyelids. And
Because
he's like,
they're always podcast.
they're always open.
A, always B P podcasting.
Yeah. And, he shows up. He's like barking at you. He's like, put your heart on the scale. And so hopefully you've read the Book of the Dead and you know what's expected of you, so on and so forth. But
he's almost like the bailiff of the underworld.
kind of, yeah. But he's like the main bureaucrat at least.
Okay.
Yeah, so he does like most of the paperwork. He has to approve a lot of the spending. I'm
He's
sure
like the bailiff and the judge rolled up into one to some
yeah,
degree.
yeah, he would probably be more. Yeah, it would be a judge that could forcibly remove you. But he was also a character that I drew in my high fantasy comic, which wasn't really that good. But I made room for Anubis, who, when the main characters went into a dream world, they were chasing after. I can't even remember what they were chasing after, but they entered a dream world, a dream state, and they found Anubis chained, and he was not able to rule his realm, and so our heroes had to battle the fake Anubis, the doppelganger,
The imposter.
Anubis, and then free. So you could tell the difference because the fake Anubis could grow and shrink, but real Anubis was like giant sized.
Okay.
And he had this huge jackal head, and it was really cool. So I dug him so much. I dig his aesthetic and also his role. And I hope in Gods of Egypt, Anubis is portrayed properly with the jackal head, not some actor
Yeah,
who's
I don't know.
probably not even Egyptian.
I would not.
Gerald Butler, is he from Egypt?
I don't think so. No,
I don't think so either.
I believe
Why
he's
do
Scottish.
Yeah, they all have to be like British because it was the British guys that dug all this stuff up.
Yeah.
But it was the real Egyptians that came up with it all. So a tip of the hat to you, Gods of Egypt, not the movie, the actual guys. Ben, we've crunched the numbers. That's the end of the show.
That's it.
If you're interested in even more 5Cast discussion, if you want to send us your own favorite Gods of Egypt, you can contact us via email, 5castpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter @the5cast. You can find us on iTunes. Just type in 5cast, geektyrant.com, soundcloud.com, FU Reddit. Ben, where could the 5casters find you online?
You can find me writing every day at geektyrant.com, and you can, I guess, follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Ben Pears.
Yeah, you got that NJNM podcast on lock?
Oh, yeah. So the old episodes of the Not Just New Movies podcast, Tyler and I's old podcast, can be found at njnmpodcast.blogspot.com. So go check those out,
You
too.
got an Instagram account, bro?
Instagram.com/Ben Pears.
You can find me on Twitter at Alan Treyburn. You're the Treyburn.
Not true.
And until next week, take 5, Ben. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Take 5.